Good morning, Facebook land. Welcome to the Go Big with Leann show, where we believe in empowerment through connection. And I'm super excited to be back on live. I took a little bit of time off. I ended up with poison ivy all over my face, and that's not very conducive to Facebook Live. So I'm happy to be back on here today and with very, very special guest, Oliver and his wife, Yaulanda Blue, and they are from down south somewhere. Where are you guys from?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, a state that I would love to come visit. And they are both certified life coaches. And I met them through the wonderful world of the World Wide Web, through the Sawyers. And I met the Sawyers through Lisa Natoli. And so, those connections, that 6 degrees, it's so fabulous how you come across such amazing folks. But I'm going to let you guys just do a brief introduction of who you are and what you want to talk about today, and then we'll get this party started.
Outstanding.
Well, thank you so much, Leann. We are just so grateful to have, first of all, to come in contact with you and the great work that you are doing, how you are connecting people and sharing dreams and hopes with the world. Is such a grateful work that you do, and we're just happy that we're here to be with you today and with your audience and the World Wide Web. But we are Oliver and Yaulanda Blue, and we're both natives of North Carolina, and we've been married for 30 years. We have 3 adult children. We've been empty nesters for about 8 years. And we have our first grandson that was born 3 months ago. And we both attended the same university. We didn't meet there. We met years later. And we just celebrated 30 years of, I guess it was happy marriage. It's happy marriage.
Happy marriage.
Yes, we just celebrated 30 years back on August 5th.
That's quite the accomplishment. 30 years of a happy marriage is awesome. So congratulations to you both on that.
Well, thank you so much. And we spent the last really 3 years really working on a project and a desire that was in our heart. And we started a personal development company called Truly OB. And more specifically, we provide coaching services to individuals, groups, organizations. And this was kind of born out of our own desires to develop a life that we would love to live, and through our own experiences and then getting professionally trained, we now work to help people to live their life. Yaulanda, would you like to add anything to our introduction?
You did a good job.
Well, I love that Truly stands for the real you loves you. So when you say the real you, what do you mean by the real you?
Well, when we use the term the real you, there's also a idea that there is a you that is not real.
Right.
And so when we refer to the real you, we're basically referring to the person's essential self, their true self, their eternal self, infinite self, their God self, versus the person's body, the person's limited life. But we're talking about
their limited life based on the conditions that they've been taught. So
right.
Circumstances, situations, conditions that tell them all the things that they cannot do and why they cannot do it, as opposed to tapping into what is within all of us. And there is that ability. We don't know that we can't do things until people tell us we can't. And we've actually spent years being told that we can't. And then we adopt that as our own mantra. So we begin to think that we can't do things that we would have tried doing and would have been fine, even failing doing those things. But because people tell us that we can't do that, we now have developed this great sense of failure is a horrible thing. Not understanding that so many of the technologies that we enjoy now happened as a result of someone failing multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that conditioned thinking, would you guys agree that, I mean, we probably spend a good majority of our life in that really limited thinking, and it takes people like yourselves, coaches or good mentors or just good spiritual gurus, pushers, to help you realize that, no, there is much, much, much more to life than what we've been conditioned to believe.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And so our approach to coaching really has to do with helping people to turn within, to discover or to focus or become aware of this unlimited resource that they are internally, intrinsically. Because a lot of us, and me included, my wife included, we spent the early part of our years seeking for success or seeking for satisfaction out there.
Yes.
We always thought it was out there somewhere, out in the stratosphere, in jobs or in relationships. We tried, we look for that happiness and that fulfillment in external things. But through our own experience and our study and investigation, we've come to understand that all of us intrinsically have everything that we need within us.
Yes.
It's within our DNA. It's within our own nature. And so, in our desire to help people, we start by helping help people to turn within, just to the basic desires that they have, in order to start there. And that's kind of the approach that we use.
We both are people that ask questions, and I'm a science major, and so I'm very attuned to nature and scientific things. Oliver used to say when we first got married, he was like, Yaulanda, everything is not science. And then 25 years later, he's like, everything is science. But
right.
But one of the things that always fascinated me, even as a child, was how animals don't struggle with who they are. You don't see birds saying, oh my gosh, if I could just be an elephant.
Right.
You don't see, the rose saying, oh gosh, if I could just be an orchid. They just don't struggle with that.
Right.
And one of the things that I was always interested in is why we as humans and supposedly the most intelligent beings out there, why is it that we struggle so with who we are and accepting, who we are, and how much we struggle with how we want other people's acceptance, of who we are. But how can they accept us if we haven't accepted ourselves? So it just seems like this vicious cycle. I'll never forget, so we're big readers. Both of us are big readers. And I remember I was reading some things and I kept saying, I had a deep desire to have a deep, meaningful marriage relationship. And I wanted our family to be a place where our children could express themselves, be able to ask any question. And most importantly, I think, was to be heard. Mm-hmm. And it's mainly because we grew up in that era where children were to be seen and not heard. So it was important to me that our children understand that they were valued and valuable to us. We deemed them to be the most important people in our world.
Right.
So I'll never forget, I told Oliver, I said, I have discovered that my happiness is not your responsibility. My happiness is my responsibility. And I want to release you from that bondage of you having to be responsible for me being happy. And it came out of, our study of joy. We grew up in the Christian church, And so there's all these different themes, and we're Bible readers, but we read a lot of everything. And the same way that I understood that my joy doesn't have to do with anyone outside of me. My joy is from who I am, and it's because of knowing whose I am, understanding that. So, so I decided I was going to release him from being responsible for my happiness.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, because I think now I have discovered that now. It doesn't mean I remember it every single day.
All right.
When you discover that your joy is a sweet spot inside of you that never goes away, then the life becomes so much lighter. Yes. It's so much free. You just I don't feel so burdened, and I don't feel the suffering, because I'm not relying on the weather, my friends, my husband, my kids, my grandkids, my job. I'm not relying on any of that to stay consistent, to bring me consistent joy, because it's not. I mean, the world is ever flowing, so that joy can be consistent. And my hope and dream in my lifetime is that I can meet amazing people like you, and that we can spread the word that it is possible, even when, I have a son that has a very severe mental illness. People have financial issues. You have illness in your family. You have all these things. But even in the midst of all the stuff that's going on, you can still experience joy. And it's not Pollyanny. It's not naivety. I think a lot of people just think I must be drinking some kind of weird Kool-Aid all day long. And I really believe that for the longest time, I was really afraid to let go of my earthly self to discover that true nature, because I was so familiar with it. Did you guys have that same experience of like, oh my God, I don't know if I can let go of this that I know so well, to something that is not really known to me?
So I don't know what it is about us, but we've had a few times where there's been these major aha moments for us. And we came to the precipice of what we knew, and had a clear understanding that there was more beyond what we knew. Right. And because we kept asking the questions, what we realized was what kept us from moving beyond what we knew was fear. Yeah. Because, we know what we know. And sometimes, we're actually conditioned to be more comfortable with the devil that we know than the devil that we don't. And that only means being more comfortable with what you know than that which you do not know. And why we make that evil, I don't understand that. So, but we got to the place where we were like, oh my goodness, we're reading things, we're watching things, I really think it came from us being quiet and going within. We, like I said, we grew up in the church, and so we were accustomed to praying. And we always had this thing about, we pray so much and we're always talking, we never get to hear what God is saying, so why don't we be quiet and hear what he has to say for a change? So we started early on in our marriage, we started being quiet. Yes. So that we could hear. And then in that quiet, we both realized that we had a lot of gratitude. When we prayed, we weren't asking for a lot of things. We were really thankful for a lot of things. And so we found that our gratitude is one of the keys that keeps us in that place of joy. Right. So where we really were wanting to get, which is where our questions were taking us, we wanted to get to that place where in the scriptures it talks about a peace that passes all human understanding. Right. So we wanted to know, well, where is that? Where is that? Yeah. What is that? And what would it look like? Yeah. So once we found some things, we were like, that's okay.
No going back.
Let's move forward. Let's just keep. And so we were willing to let it all go. And we've done that a couple of times. Right. We were like, okay, this doesn't serve us anymore. This is not where we are longing to be. This is not where we felt a pull. Yes. And so we were like, okay, the reason we did that was because we had a lot of trust and faith in the love that we believe that the Creator has for all people.
Yes.
And so because of that, we figured, okay, we're going to do this. We can make a choice. We're going to choose this. If it doesn't work out, guess what? We choose again.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
So, that's what we tell our children. We're like, okay, we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. I'm big on best practices. So,
and Yaulanda used a word that is like the elephant in most people's room. She used the word fear.
Yeah.
And that's, in many people's lives, that is the big elephant in their life. May not admit it, may not be aware of it, but it is fear. And that fear comes from not knowing who we really are as eternal, spiritual, infinite beings. Creative beings.
Yeah.
And it was more so in my life than hers. I mean, I was steeped in fear, didn't realize it, but it was our coming together that helped us bring it to the surface, and then not create, but to use the tools that are available to us in order to dispel the fear. And the tool that we found was our true identity. Because when you realize who you are as the real you, which is love, sacred writing said, love casteth out all fear. It dispels it. And so fear comes from really being unaware of who you really are. Most people think they are a physical body and their life is their timeline, the day they was born, the activities in between, and the day they die. That's not who you are. That's just an experience that you're having as a human being. But who we really are direct expressions of the divine, of spirit, of eternity. And life didn't start at our birth, and life doesn't end at the date on the death certificate. That's just an experience that we have.
Which is why we don't have to be afraid of transitioning.
Right.
When you raise children, or you're around a lot of children, and we've been around a lot of children, you get to see them as they're going from, into the different stages. And I'll never forget, one didn't want to learn to tie the shoes. Why do I have to tie my shoes? You can tie my shoes. Why don't you tie my shoes? It's like, no, it's time for you to learn. I don't want to tie my shoes. I mean, and it was like, so one, you had one that was all excited about tying the shoes, and then you had the other, I don't want to tie the shoes. And so it's like, and so you have to pull one, and the other, you get to just, sometimes, it's a little scooch from the back. But so when you watch, and I'm an observer of people and nature, and I would watch just how carefree, children and animals were. And then just how heavy and burdened we were as adults. And I was thinking, as children, we couldn't wait to become adults. And then we become adults and we're like, oh, we could just be children again.
Yes.
And so it was this, we questioned, where do we have so much discontent? There's a scripture that talks about us being content in all states. And it doesn't mean that you accept mediocrity or you not doing, or being what you're supposed to be. It means that, when you show that gratitude for where you are,
right,
then, so it really comes to, so I used to have this pair of shades that we got for the kids, big fat, and they had all these little slits across them. And so when you put them on, you don't really get to see because you got all these things, you can't really see. And it was just such a simplistic example of where we end up spending a lot of our lives once we start making decisions for ourselves. So because it starts before we become adults. But once we start making decisions for ourselves, we actually make those decisions based on those things that we have, the filters, all that stuff that we've been exposed to, and that we actually accept. And now that becomes part of us, as opposed to us coming from that place that is within, where there's always peace, there's always joy, there's always this calm. So what we came to discover was that so that love conquers all, love casts out fear. We found it's all about the love.
It's all about the love.
So we were like, okay,
Yes.
so what is that? What is that love? What does it look like? I mean, what does it do? And so then we make decisions as to how we want to show up in the world. And I'll never forget, I'll tell this real brief story. My dad, I was young, and my dad said to me, he said, Yaulanda, your temper is your problem. He said, now I strongly suggest that you decide to do something about that. He said, for a number of reasons. He said, one, it's going to get you in a lot of trouble. When you're, all up here, and you're beyond anyone being able to say anything to you, you can't hear. He says, you're not thinking clearly. He said, that's not good. He said, and he said, the other thing is you're going to teach people that they can just, they going to know how to push your buttons. And so you're, it's like you're going to be a puppet. He was like, so he said, I strongly suggest that you do something about it. He said, now I'm going to tell you this. He said, because I have to live with you, it's not something I'm going to deal with. He said, so either you choose to do something about it, he said, or I'm going to handle it. I didn't know what that actually meant, but I knew that I should probably do something about that. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to just, fly off the handle. So now over the years, am I always successful at that? No. And, I'll never forget my children were very instrumental in a number of things. Like, I'll never forget when our daughter said to me, she says, Mommy, we can always tell when you're angry because your teeth don't move. And I thought about what she said, and she was true, because when I would get to that point, I would get very deliberate. I slow down, I lower my voice, but I am, because I'm trying to contain it. And so the children would lean in, but, they didn't want to, because they're like, what is she saying? Well, did I want that to be the experience that my children were having? So no, so I chose to apologize to my children. I thank them for bringing that to my attention. And then I have to make certain that when I get to that point, that I'm not having my teeth to be clenched. So it's those kinds of things that if we're not aware, then we don't necessarily believe that we should do anything about that. Not only are we diminishing our lives, but we are diminishing the life experiences of the people that are around us.
Yeah, self-awareness is a huge factor. And I think that's one thing. A lot of people are still pointing the finger outside of themselves. It's their weight problem, it's their boss's problem. And we really need to, ideally, is it always fun to do self-reflection and self-awareness? Not necessarily, but I have found that, because I can be really mouthy. So not necessarily temper through the mouth. And I had to learn the same thing, that wasn't serving me very well. And so it was up to me to make a new and different decision on what I wanted to bring into the world. Did I want to bring in love? Did I want to bring in more chaos and more bitterness? And I absolutely do not want to do that. So I when you're interacting with others, I think it's awesome when we get to this point where we're willing to take on that personal responsibility. And I know as life coaches, that's one of the things that life coaches will really kind of, maybe zero in on something that you weren't able to see yourself. Because we get so caught up in our own life. It's like a chef who's so good at cooking. It's hard to teach someone their skills because they do it just without any thought. That's a habit. You're doing things without thought and effort, and you're skilled at it. And we become very skilled at our stories. And so yes. I have a saying that says the stories of your mind become the stories of your life. Well, actually, it's not my saying, but anyways, a saying that I use a lot. And so I asked myself, do I like what's going on up here? Do I want that story to play out? And if the answer is no, then I need to change my inside story so the outside story can reflect something different. And then our presence alone can heal situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Oliver. So what, when we go back to like in your coaching, your mission statement is we help people discover infinite potential, give voice to their dreams and desires. So I know a lot of people that are kind of on the spiritual journey are really confused about that idea of their personal wants and desires, because there's so many mixed messages like, oh, well, I can't want a new house and all that because that's not spiritual. But that's not exactly what it's saying. We can still have our goals and desires. We just see them from a different point. Would you agree, Oliver?
Absolutely. I think part of maturing as a human being is discovering who you really are as a spiritual being, and then realizing that the whole of our life, which is our human side, is to be integrated into this one self. And so it's not that you have desires for things, it's that now your life has purpose. Okay, it's that you have purpose. And so just like you're doing this show, you can't do this show without technology, without a microphone, without marketing, without, but you're doing it with a purpose, of helping others and connecting others to the world. So so you're right. It's about helping people to see that their life had deep meaning. Yes. Other than being born into a family with a family name, with an education, with a job, with retirement, in 80 years and you're out of here. Life is much more than that. Yes. We are here as an expression of love and of light, and in everything that we do, be it work, be it play, be it family, be it it doesn't matter. It's all a part of this expression of love and light in terms of who we are as individuals. And our life then becomes a help to others, to give them encouragement that they can have a life that they love and a life that has purpose. So we really hone in on the purpose for one life when we're working with individuals or groups.
Right. And as individuals, it's good to drop the comparison, because, what I feel called to do is going to be totally different than what someone else is called to do. So
absolutely,
if someone wants to be a really good mom, that is fantastic. If someone wants to be the next CEO of Google or whatever it is, there's in the spirit of our real you, there's no big or small goals.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And in our coaching business, what we do not do is make mini me's. And I believe that a good mentor understands that you're not to try to make someone emulate your life. What you do is you help them to see what is in what they're repressing. We're helping them to unleash that which is already in them. And so what we don't do is tell people what to do.
Right.
What we do is our coaching approach is evocative. And so the same way we ask ourselves a lot of questions, we'll ask people questions, because I really believe that deep down, everyone knows their stuff. We really know what our strengths are. We know what our weaknesses are. I mean, we know what our issues are. And there are a few people in our lives that may call us out on that. Your parents, your good friends, a spouse, your children, if you allow that. Children can be incredibly great teachers. If we don't see them as children,
right?
If we see them as
equals,
as young humans who are looking at things entirely different than we are, and I mean they just are the way they are. So what we do is we ask a lot of questions and get people to ask themselves
a lot of
questions, because we believe that the quality of our questions actually will determine the quality of our life.
Yes.
And
the one question we love to ask people when we work with them, or the first question we ask them, is, what would you love? Mm-hmm. And it's amazing sometimes the response we get when you ask you can try it yourself, Leann. Just ask a friend or a stranger, what would you love? And sometimes people would lean back and like, oh, they don't have a direct response for that because they never asked themselves the question. Yeah. However, within them, there are longings for more or for different. And there's also discontents. Yes. Things that they don't want less of or don't want in their life. So it is through our longings and through our discontent, if we can get people to become aware of those things, those two elements usually tells us about the life that we really would love to live.
So a lot of people can't tell us when we ask people, what would you love? Like, what would you mean? And we go further and we say, okay, so if there were no such situations, circumstances, or conditions that would keep you from doing whatever it is that you want to do. So it doesn't matter what your age is, doesn't matter where your location is, doesn't matter what your financial status is. That's background. A huge block for a lot of people. Doesn't matter what your background, it doesn't matter what your experience is, your education level. If you didn't have any of those restrictions, what is it? If you could just do whatever you wanted to do, what would you do? And a few people will say, well, I have always wanted.
Yes. Yes.
And then you ask him, okay, so then why do you not do that? Oh, and then they start listing off. They can list off really, really quickly why it is they can't. Instead of taking the time to consider, what can I do with what I have, where I am right now, in order to start moving into the direction of the life that I would love to live.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, including myself, thought it was all or nothing. It was there was nothing about baby steps about it. It was like I had to do this or this. I couldn't, So I've had a really strong desire, probably since as young as I can remember, probably the third grade, that I wanted to be a connector, and so connect people, whether it's to a book, to a place, to a job, to an idea. It's just I've always had that strong longing. But my hang up was I'm like, I don't know how to turn that into a job, how to pay my bills. And it took me a long time to understand that piece of me, that longing, could be done in everything that I do. It didn't have to be something separate. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that gets caught up in that idea that it has to have a job title or it has to have this. But if you feel called to be a mentor or a connector or whatever it is, I do it all through my day because that's who I want to be. Whether I'm at my day job, whether I'm doing these interviews, whether I'm out riding my bike on the trail. So I'm, and it brought me so much peace when I came to that idea that it didn't have to be, because I don't know how many, for a while I jumped jobs like no one's business. I was in the military for 21 years, but after I retired.
Thank you for your service.
My pleasure. My son is now, he flies the KC-135 tanker. So he followed in my,
outstanding.
So I hope that, people can understand that what society has told us, it has to look a certain way. And that's another idea that we just need to throw out the window, because what I found is that when I let go of that, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, I call it God, has shown me all kinds of ways to make it happen. Yeah. And in the littlest ways, in the biggest ways, and the in-between ways. And it's just fascinating.
It is.
So Leann, can I flip the interviewer here for a moment? So when you find yourself in these connecting moments, how did that make you feel?
I feel like the world could crumble around me, and I'd never even notice it, because it's just such a place of love for me. I don't know. I really don't even know how to describe it, because it's kind of beyond words.
Yes. And that's the thing that Yaulanda and I have such a desire to help other people to find their yes in life, because there is a place for every one of us, that if we find that place, it is the place that we will feel our greatest, our light would shine the brightest, we will be the most happiest. And it doesn't have to be some great job or great a skill or talent that a person has. It could be just as simple as, like you said, connecting people. Now, how that may manifest in your life, of course, now your program is a part of that. It's unique. All of our lives are very unique. Every story is different. But Spirit has the ability to take the events of our lives and move us in the direction of the thing that we love, so that our light will shine bright in the world and help people, and that we'll be the happiest, because that's the goal.
And that's what's so powerful in you fulfilling that longing that you've had.
Yes.
Since you were a young girl. My longing was to be helpful. I wanted to help, and I did that in a number of ways. But in your fulfilling that, you actually fulfill a need where someone else, gets to have what they need.
Right.
And so it's one of these, it's one of those connectors,
Right.
you just, it's so powerful that you think that, well, okay. So I remember when the kids were, Bill Gates and all these people, they're in their garages and they're building these things and drop out of school. And so then, parents were like, oh my God, no, you have to go to school. Well, being educated, where we do a lot of things where we educate a lot of people, we understand that, people, there are so many different learning styles and people learn differently. And so there is a path that may not be for everyone, but there is a path for everyone.
That's right.
So it's not that you have to be on the same path as everyone else. It's just that you need to be on the path. And so it's so powerful when we can make those connections, when we can have our longings or our discontents to be addressed.
Yes.
So that because most people want to, people want to be accepted, they want to be loved, and they want to have some type of purpose.
Right.
They want to fulfill some type of purpose.
Right.
And that's true across the board.
Yes.
When you talk to children about that, they can just really go there. Like when we were having one of these discussions with our children, one was like, well, what if I want to shoot everybody? We had no guns. We didn't play with guns. We didn't, and it's like, where on earth is in this? But Mommy, you said we could do whatever we want to do. And we're like, okay.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
Oh, not that they have the real desire to shoot. They're just saying, I can do whatever. And if that's, and so it's like this whole thing about freedom. People, I have the freedom to do whatever I want to do. Yes. But my freedom to raise my hand, that's my freedom. But when my hand hits him, I've now violated my freedom because I violated him.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and when we step into our yes, it gives courage to others to step into their yes. And what if we had a world where everybody decided to step into their yes? The world would be a totally different place from yesterday to today.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of the one, reasons why I also choose to show up every day, because I hope that it gives someone else courage.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of people have a tendency to look at me and like, well, Leann, yeah, but you can do this because you've been doing it. Well, I haven't been doing it all my life. I had horrible self-esteem in high school. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I mean, we've all had our
path.
Our struggles that we had to work through, our losses, our past, and the challenges. And again, not everybody's meant to do Facebook Lives or public speaking or coach others, but we all can show up in our yes. And just make a huge difference in the world just by our presence. We don't even need the words. And I found that I've really been doing a deep dive into the Course in Miracles, and I believe, Oliver, you study the Course in Miracles, and I found that now I use less words probably than I ever have in my whole life, because I've realized that less can be more when I'm, especially when I take the time to become in the right, that love spot. I don't need a lot of words, because just my presence is all that's needed. The words aren't. So that's a huge relief as well, to know that we don't always have to have, because there's a lot of hurt going on in the world right now. So it's hard to find those words. But I have love.
Yes.
And I can give love without words.
Yes. Yes. Well, we'll go on to say it even deeper, that you are love.
Yes.
And that's why, like you said earlier, it's so vital that people find out who they really are, the real you, because the real you not only loves you, but the real you is love. And when I found out personally, and when Yaulanda found out personally, we got to experience these discoveries together. When we found out what real love is, that it's not something separate and apart from us, but it is who we are. It is what we were born as. Yes. When you embrace that, then your whole world began to be a place of love and a space of love. Even when we met 30 years ago, we met. And
we actually met a little bit before.
But 30 years ago, it was in the same year we got married. We met officially and got married in the same year that we met. In fact, we had 3 months and we were married.
It was 5 months.
5 months, and then we were married. And we came together out of this desire to want to know what the truth was. So our marriage was not based on what the world called love.
Right.
But we wanted to join together and discover what life really meant together. Yes. That was our coming together.
Yeah.
We came together actually for the greater good.
Right.
Because there had been a tragedy. And so, so I ended up marrying someone that I didn't know. I mean, I had met him, but I didn't really, we didn't date, we didn't court. People thought that we had, but none of that had happened. And so this is why I can tell you, see, we practice. I mean, we're not telling you something that we haven't done. When we see, okay, this is where we have been, this is what we know, and what's over there, we step over. We're gonna keep walking. We're gonna make this choice. We're gonna see what it is. Because what you don't want to do is, we keep hearing people say this when they come to the end of their life. They don't say, oh, I really wish I had worked so much more. I wish I had made so much more money. Or I wish that's not what people are saying. They're saying they really wish that they had not been so afraid, that they didn't live the life that they really wanted to live, that they didn't express
that's right. And
have the experiences that they really wanted to have. So in our coaching business, what happens is we actually, there is a specified direction that we can take these various steps to help people to unleash what is inside of them in a very succinct manner. And you start at one place, not knowing at all what it is that you want to do. And it doesn't matter what it is. And we don't have to have the skill set to know everything that you need in order to be able to do that. But what we can do is help you to discover steps that you can take that'll move you in that direction, and you can actually live the experience that you're longing.
Yeah. But to finish my statement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was purpose that brought us together. Yeah. And want to live a purposeful life. But along the journey, we learned and we discovered love, and we fell in love with each other. So, and I think that that's one of the reasons that, we've lasted 30 years, because our life has always been driven by purpose. What the word in terms of why, what is it for? What is life for? What is it about? What should we be doing with the assets that we have? And So in finding those things out, we were able to design our life purposefully to build a family, to build a career, and then now to start our own business 3 years ago. And so all this is born out of our own experiences and our own desires. And we just want to share it with the world.
Yeah, that's so beautiful that I wrote down you came together for greater good. And I wasn't so successful at married. So I went through a divorce, but I've been with my partner now for 8 or 9 years. And it was similar. I had no desire to be with anybody. We were both in crisis point of our life, but some of you are going to think this is really weird. I know you guys won't, but I was told by Holy Spirit that we had work to do together and that we needed to come together.
Right.
And it's been an amazing journey with lots of twists and turns, but
Absolutely.
I agree. It taught me unconditional love
Yes.
through that process, because it wasn't me making the decision really to be with him. It was, I mean, I guess I did, but I was guided to that. So
Yes.
just, I mean, imagine if we all came together for the greater good.
Yes.
You know, if that was our intention,
Yes.
you know, when we woke up every morning, you
Yes.
know, to come together with our coworkers, to come together with
Yes.
the cashier, you know, whoever you interact with that day, that your intention is to come together for the greater good. Wow.
Yes.
Just, I mean, and that doesn't sound too difficult. It doesn't cost any money or time, or it's just you being self-aware. So that's going to be kind of my new daily mode of operation. So
Right.
I appreciate that. But I so thank you guys for being on the show today. And I hope that people will check out your website and reach out to you if they have any questions or want to work with you as coach. But what final words do you want to leave the audience on? You know, if they're on that fence of like they really want to know the real you, is there one thing that they could do today for themselves that would maybe give them some more insight of what is their next step?
Well, based on my own experience, and being mentored or being coached really makes a huge difference. And I got to the point where I reached out to others that were already accomplishing and successful at the thing that I wanted to do and to be. And I was willing to submit myself to their mentoring, their coaching, and it brought so much understanding to me and made so much sense about, you know, my own life, as well as the things that I could do, like Yaulanda said earlier, just where I was at in that moment. There were things that I could do, didn't cost money, but things I could do that could make a difference and move me into the direction of the life that I would love living. There's a quote from Henry David Thoreau that says, you know, Henry David, he went into the woods and he had this experiment with his life because he wanted to know all about life. And in his experiment, his conclusion was that if any human being would just move in the direction of their dreams, their desires, just take one tiny step, just move in the direction of their dream confidently, and the confidence coming from the fact that the laws of life works, that they would have success at some point in their journey. But you got to just move, just take the first step. That first step could be as simple as making a phone call. That first step could be as simple as buy a book. That first step could be as simply as
do a little research.
Go online. There's so many free webinars and seminars that you can find anything. If you have an interest and a desire, just Google it and just begin there. Start there. And so just take that first step. You can never get up to the top of the mountain if you don't take the first step. So that's what
Exactly.
I would encourage everyone to do today.
And so my thing was, I would ask them, you know, what is it costing you? You know, how much is it costing you to not live what you really want to live? And ask yourself, you know, is it worth it? I mean, how much more pain,
Right.
disappointment, how much more frustration, you know,
Unhappiness.
unhappiness. I mean, how much more of that And why do you think you're not deserving of living the life that you long to live?
Right.
You know, we believe that everyone is deserving of that.
Yes.
We believe that everyone has a deposit to make in the world for the greater good.
For the greater good.
And,
Yeah.
and if each of us does that,
A better
then we
world.
actually will get to where we have a better world. There used to be this saying, it was a little joke that people would say for a number of different things, you know. So, you know, there's a sale going over here, or there's something great that's going on, and people say, oh, me, my four, no more. Well, no, it's not enough for it to just be me, my four, and no more. It's not enough for us. It's to be all of us, because
Yes.
you know, our parents taught us very much that we are our brother's keeper. And what we now understand is it's not just that we are our brother's keeper. We are our brother.
Yes.
Yes.
We are our brother.
All
And
things are the one thing. Yes.
so as we do well, we and as we achieve, and as we, you know, live the experience that we want to live and experience, it's not enough for just us.
Right.
You know,
It's for
it
everyone.
makes the whole world better if we're
Yeah.
all doing that. That does not mean that if the world is falling down all around me, that I can't be happy and joyful, because I am. That's how I've decided to show up in the world. But it just means that if each of us does that, and we influence the world that we're in, before, you know, it wouldn't be that long before all of us
Yes.
are living in a much better place.
Awesome. Well, I hope the audience and those who are catching the live or the replay takes that to heart, and, you know, just takes that baby step today, you know, towards, and that first step can be scary, but there's nothing horrible that's going to happen. I promise you. So I hope everyone has a great day today, and you guys can go check out their website. It's right here on the screen, trulyob.com, and they have all their bios and all the great information about them. And again, thank you for being here today. And maybe I think I'll have you back again, because you guys are so beautiful and such a powerful message that I know we have much more that we could talk about, but we'll be respectful of people's time. And everybody have a great Friday, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.